Welcome to episode 2 of VISTA Table Talks. I'm Kim Chen, the Assistant National Director of the Up2Us VISTA program. This series gives our VISTAs a space to discuss their work, their successes, and their challenges. This month, in alignment with AmeriCorps Week last week, and our VISTAs reflecting on the global pandemic, we are offering them an opportunity to talk about why they chose to serve in this unprecedented year and the amazing ways youth sports organizations have innovated, pivoted, and gotten really creative to support their communities and the youth they serve. To lead us in this conversation, I'm going to pass it over to someone who is the definition of service and community, Luis Vasquez, our former Up2Us Sports Los Angeles Program Director and current Program Director of JEDI, which is Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Luis? Take it away.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Super excited to be here. This is a great conversation. It's going to be a nice, quick 50 minutes of just being able to bring some of these great conversations that you guys are having within your organizations and things that are important. I know it's been a crazy road, but we're here and we've overcome and we're ready for the spring. So excited to be here. I will do a quick introduction of myself, of how did I get here, and then we'll do a quick turnaround for everybody to introduce themselves. All right. So, like Kim said, my name is Luis Vasquez, former program director out of LA, and now I love to call this new title JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. I think it's it's catchy, right? It's sexy right now, but it's also very important that these are the identities that that I walk around with every day and I acknowledge. So a little bit of me, I was born and raised in East LA, a neighborhood that was, pretty tough. And I did have some parents that were very loving and they cared a lot. But still, I saw a lot of my peers struggle. There was a lot of, there was still a lot of gang violence. There's a lot of drugs. But the one thing that really changed my life was sports. And I didn't know it then yet, but it really was going to set the standard for my life and set the path for it. Played football, played track, was in the Navy for 12 years. And then I got out and I was like, what am I going to do? And mentorship was really the thing that was really embedded in me. And then I started working with kids in football. And I really saw what football and sports meant to kids. At first I was mentoring one kid and I really thought, this is my impact. I really want to do this. And then got into then I saw football teams and I was like, man, this is where the work is. We came to Up2Us and really understand the trauma informed plus the sports. And I was like, oh, this is it. Drop the mic. I've done it all. And then now just really excited to be working with youth. And so it's important to bring these conversations not only for our youth that we serve, but the VISTAs and the community members that we have. So a little bit of a quick intro for me, but we're going to go around the circle and we'll do a quick name, where are you serving, and what is your role as a VISTA. So we'll kick it off with Hannah.
Hey everybody, I'm Hannah Niles. I'm serving in Washington, D.C. as a development and fundraising AmeriCorps VISTA for Soul programs through Up2Us Sports. Soul's mission is to disrupt the cycle of poverty by connecting high school-aged youth who are involved in sports to diverse opportunities that build life skills needed to succeed academically and professionally.
Love that. That's exactly what an intro should look like. No, just kidding. Thank you, Anna. That's amazing. Next. Popcorn it.
Hey. I can go next.
Yep. Yeah, go for it.
Hi everyone, I'm Rahael Atkerson. I am a marketing AmeriCorps VISTA at Youth Mentoring Partnership in Philadelphia, PA. And our mission is to teach youth the skills they need to be successful through our core values, mentoring, goals, grit, and gratitude. And our medium is fitness. Spencer.
Hey, thanks. And I'm Spencer Barnes. I'm the AmeriCorps VISTA with the Women's Sports Foundation, working in the advocacy department, and WSF, Women's Sports Foundation, exists to provide and expand opportunities, including through leadership, to build experiences in life and specifically in sports for girls.
Love that, everybody. Well, welcome to the table, and it gets into real talk. So we're moving on. So COVID-19, literally today, yesterday, might have been the first anniversary, birthday, whatever you want to call it, but we're here. Tell us a little bit about what it's been like. You know, it was an entire year of COVID, and you guys decided to participate as a VISTA and really give back during these times. Why did you choose this organization? Tell us a little bit more of what you're doing in your role.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. So I'll be as transparent as I can. So I was in grad school from the fall of 2019 through December of 2020. And in the late spring, early summer of 2020, then in the middle of my grad program, I was just reaching out to people looking for opportunities to get involved professionally, and got connected with somebody at the Women's Sports Foundation, and was able to, within a week or two, begin as an AmeriCorps VISTA for a summer-long program. So 2 months with the Women's Sports Foundation through AmeriCorps. Stayed on with them through the fall. I really felt connected with their mission, and personally connected to the organization. And then this opportunity came up to be a year-long VISTA in the fall, or in November. So it started out as just how can I get involved and position myself for post-graduation, and then luckily found the best option I could. And I don't know that there's a better way I could have been able to further myself from a professional sport, with a professional standpoint, which ultimately is using sport to create opportunities for others and have a real impact in the world outside of sports. And it's worked out professionally and from all standpoints, I think.
I think my path is very similar to Spencer's. I left school in March when everybody was sent home. And before graduation and into the summer, I was looking for ways to volunteer, but also employment, obviously. And so during these times, things were not looking incredibly overwhelming in terms of employment options. But then I was volunteering with Soul for the entire summer and looking to stay on with them. So a VISTA position was open. I applied and started that. And so here I am now. But everything that a sports-based youth development program does is exactly aligned with what I want to do professionally in my career. So it just made sense to start this way and gain the experience this way while serving a community that I care so deeply about.
Yeah, and I chose service because after all that we've been through politically in the past few years, I've been looking for ways to be more involved in my community, because directly serving those who need help is the best way to see the change that we hope for. I kind of stumbled upon my site while job searching, like Spencer and Hannah. I was kind of just in the market for a marketing position, but once I met with the director and staff at Youth Mentoring Partnership, it felt like a perfect fit, because we're all driven by the need to help underserved communities and creating safe spaces to exist as marginalized people. And so that's kind of how I came upon this VISTA opportunity, and it's been really great to be making a difference in my community. I feel really productive, so it's been fun.
Yeah, Rahel, thank you guys for sharing. One of the things that when you were talking came up is a little bit about like social justice and equity and diversity, and you guys are on the ground. Tell us a little bit more of the work that you guys have seen and why it's so important, not only to be a community member that's concerned, but serve as a VISTA at these organizations and doing innovative work.
I think personally, like everybody on whatever kind of level is impacted by this pandemic, but I just feel a sense of like desire to help like lessen the gap between the marginalized that's already existing. And I only think that this pandemic is just going to make it worse. So there's just an abundance of opportunity to help a community of people that was already in need, but is even in a more desperate need now. And I think just seeing the lack of access of information and technology and whatever it might be that was already troubling these communities just intensified even more now, I think that it makes our work that much more important.
I agree with Hannah. I think that these communities are already the communities that we serve are already under-resourced, and COVID came and made things much worse. You know, we work with students and they don't have the proper technology, Wi-Fi. It's hard to communicate, you know, through or have class learn through a computer screen every day. So, you know, it's really important that we give back to those communities, and especially to me, it's important to be involved in my community. And I think that, you know, like I said, directly serving those who need help is really the main way we're going to see change and growth in these communities, I think.
Yeah, throughout all my years at school, then like as a white male, like I've read about how different communities are impacted, and like to a certain extent, I've experienced that in real life. But again, like acknowledging who I am, then like this is the first real opportunity over the last year working with the Women's Sports Foundation to see from it's the most tangible it's been for me to see. This is the direct impact of something like COVID, and just making situations that were already disproportionate even worse. And it's intersectional. It's absolutely race, and it's more than race as well. But Rahael's already said it a couple times that yeah, this is just I never would have imagined this would have been the perfect thing for me, especially right out of grad school. But it's become that, and just become exhibit A for a ton of life lessons.
Yeah, thank you. And again, it's having these difficult conversations, right? Whether we're a man or whether we're white or whether we have the other identities, how do we come together and have one real authentic conversation to continue to move forward? So let's talk a little bit about some of the work that you guys are doing and how you got in creative, right? Because in March last year, we're like, this is 2 weeks. No way it could go more than 2 weeks. And then now a year later, we're kind of still doing the same thing. What was your initial role? And then what are some of the ways that you've seen your organization get creative to ensure that we're talking about internet stuff, that we're giving hotspots out, or computers are getting out, or food? What are some of the things your organization is doing that is very creative and innovative?
For better or worse, most of the creativity that I've seen personally with the Women's Sports Foundation has been on the virtual side. So to your point, recognizing that not all people necessarily have access to that, and WSF still works with community partners that help with programming that doesn't require virtual things. But in the last year, then there are a couple big events that stand out. So every year, WSF has a annual salute to women in sports. It's usually in the fall, and a couple hundred people are in New York City for a big event. This year, it was completely online. So that took several months of planning from the whole organization, and ended up, while nobody could be in person and it's going to be different, then it also presents an opportunity to reach an audience of, in this instance, over 1 million people. Whereas the direct impact before is maybe in the thousands. And I think National Girls and Women in Sports Day about a month ago is a similar instance where the team at WSF usually will go to DC and meet with people at Capitol Hill and do some lobbying there. This year they were able to do some virtual lobbying, and then my role was more related to a Girls Fest event that we were hosting. And again, compared to an in-person year where on the ground in New York, maybe it's in the double or triple digits of number of girls, then this year it's 4 or 5 digits that you can reach. And it's not perfect. It's still people watching on screens, but to be able to reach that number of people is kind of the best that you can hope for right now.
I think also for Soul, from a fundraising standpoint, that's where we've had to get the most creative, because our major source of revenue was our annual basketball tournament in March. And obviously that's not a safe thing to do during this climate. So we had to turn it into like a virtual like slam dunk contest, stuff like that. So that called for a lot of creativity. But in terms of youth engagement, I think instead of being creative in a sense, we were innovative towards like going back to the basics, in terms of like we were all craving human interaction, and the basic needs of just like human contact. So instead of like having group sessions where students might be in a group of like 20 for like a study hall on Zoom, which basically resembles what their class looks like all day, we've been able to assign like a mentor with a mentee. And so they can meet once or twice a week, still online, but it could be FaceTime, it could be a phone call, text, whatever is easiest for the two of them. And they're working on goal setting and career development, stuff like that, for what life looks like after high school. So that may mean that we are engaging a few less kids, but I think the impact is deeper, with the one-on-one relationships.
Yeah, my site has gotten creative in a similar way. Our biggest endeavor that we've taken on recently is food distribution. In the past year, we've delivered over 250,000 meals to our students that rely on their schools to feed them at least twice a day. And we recruited volunteers from Philly and Coatesville, the communities that we serve. And that was a big accomplishment. Another one was our virtual raffle that we are kicking off pretty soon. Like Hannah said, we had to get really creative with fundraising because our biggest fundraisers are usually in person. We have like a color run and some other events. So we have transitioned to virtual fundraisers, and we are, auctioning off a Jeep. And that's been really fun. I've had direct hand in that, marketing that and creating like, all the marketing materials. And that's been a really great time. We're launching that soon, so stay tuned. But
How do I get my name? How do I get my name in the hat? Because I definitely could use a new Jeep out here.
yeah, check out Youth Mentoring Partnership on Instagram and Facebook. We'll be posting about it.
There's the plug. There's the plug. No, thank you so much. So let's talk a little bit about relationships, right? Relationships matter and they're important. I think for me as a mentor, it's at the core of who I am. I walk into every space and how do I create those relationships? Talk to us a little bit about, maybe you could share one story, an aha moment that you had with the youth or with serving with others in this community, or something that really popped to you that was just a moment of like, this is why I'm here and this is why me serving is so important.
Yeah, there's a phone call that stands out. I talked about it briefly at the top of this, but I think it was probably April, May, June sometime last year that I had originally been in touch with the person who's now my supervisor at the Women's Sports Foundation. And I had, I don't know, 20, 30 of these phone calls before this with other people, and they've been great, just networking. And this was definitely one of the stronger ones. We talked for almost an hour, and by the end of it, we're just sharing like personal experiences of our favorite like women's sports events that we had been to in person. And on top of the conversation that we had before and emphasis on the Women's Sports Foundation's motto of all girls, all women, all sports, and especially given the last couple months around anti-trans laws around the country, that's really come to fruition. But that phone call really laid the groundwork for the last 9 months of my life. It was within the next week that I got an email saying, hey, if you can apply in the next couple days, we would love to potentially have you on as a summer VISTA. So yeah, that it was the first time I had ever spoke with her, and just a really strong start to the relationship. And now 9 months later, then it seems like it's been a great overall fit.
I think for me, it actually happened over the summer. Before I was a VISTA, but like I was still working with the organization, basically same thing. I got to go to a early morning beach workout with some basketball players. Obviously COVID safe, we all had our masks on. It was a small group of maybe 2 or 3 of them with their coach, who is our executive director. And so we did get to do like some in-person training, and I put them through like a beach workout, and they all kind of were surprised at how hard it was. And it was just like a really good moment to like be able to meet like a small population of the kids I was going to be able to serve as being a VISTA.
Yeah, I'm only about 4 months into serving, so there hasn't been any life-changing events yet, but I would say that it's just been great to hear from, past volunteers, current volunteers, students, about how YMP has helped them. We've, as the marketing coordinator, I've been doing a lot of outreach to those people, and it's just been so awesome hearing their responses to YMP and how, we've kind of changed their life. So I'd say that's what's really been motivating me to keep going and, keep serving, these people who need it.
Thank you guys. Yeah, that's all very important. So a little bit of, fast forward. Now we're getting towards a year in, right? Rahael, you took 4 months. I know it's half of the time, but what are some of the challenges that are still happening today? Hannah, you talked a little bit about fundraising, funding, or participation or attendance. Like, what are some of the things that still are troubling today?
I think in terms of fundraising, the biggest thing is that everybody is doing online webinars. Everybody is doing online fundraising or whatever it might be. And I just think people's feeds, whether it's social media or whatever it might be, is just completely clogged with all this types of information that they could get involved in. So in the beginning, it was a lot easier to navigate because everybody was still like adjusting and stuff, but now everybody is virtual. Everybody is doing all these different things on a virtual platform. So it's like, how do you stand out and how do you get your message across better than, I don't want to even call it competitors because we're all serving and we're all, fighting for our respective causes. But how do you stand out and how do you get donors' eyes or just your community? But I think that's a big one. And also just engagement with our youth. I think if kids aren't showing up to their class, how can we expect them to show up to an online tutoring like a couple hours after school ends? So it's coming up with ways to create those relationships with the students first. That might be through wellness checks or just calling up on them and just making sure that their family's okay and stuff like that, before we can establish a relationship where they feel like they want to come to tutoring or want to come to study hall, whatever it might be.
Somebody once said relationships matter, right? Next.
I would agree 100%. I think we've had to get really creative. And just being here in the past 4 months, I feel like I've been going like 100 miles per minute, trying to like learn everything. And, my biggest challenge as an AmeriCorps Vista, I would say, is having to interact with, people that I don't see every day and I've only met once in person. For my organization, I would say that virtual learning has had, its pros and cons. Like Hannah said, relationship building is so crucial in the work that we do. And so it has been difficult to engage students through a computer screen and establish that trust that, mentor-mentee relationships need when there are 30 other people in a Zoom meeting. So that, I would say, it's been challenging having to work around that. We've gotten really creative. That one-on-one encouragement interaction is so important. So we've had to, schedule those outside meetings, find other ways to just, get the students excited to come to class and come to gym and stuff like that.
For WSF, then, as a like community-facing organization, I think this is outside of my department, but our community impact department works with our partner organizations that are the ones on the ground putting on these events and programs for girls. And that is where the biggest challenge is. Can you and how can you return to those in-person events where you're building the relationships and being active, especially with others. How can we bring those back safely? And in conjunction with that, like dropout rates already before COVID, girls drop out of sports at earlier ages than boys, and then that, as with many other things, it disproportionately affects girls of color. They drop out earlier than white girls. So, and it's again more than race. It's very cross sectional. So among those groups that are already marginalized, then being this like very intentional and aware of what's happening. So definitely still a challenge. But if I could ask Rahael and Hannah, then is there anything like I think we talked about the opportunities. Is there anything you see moving forward that like you've actually been like, okay, even after COVID, like this is what we might still do when things are fully back in person?
I think just the ability to have virtual programming as well, for those students who might not be able to like make it into our office, or like if they are going to school in person, maybe it is going to be easier for them to do a tutoring session for an hour online. Like I think creating a hybrid of the two will be sustainable. And also I think just using like a virtual like workout platform, like doing virtual workouts for like our community, whether it's our students or our volunteers. We found engagement in that way too. I think people are just like craving, like I said, human interaction and doing stuff as a group. And if we don't see that like big groups gathering for a little while, then I think the virtual platform could still be used.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think although it's been a really rough year, we have, that creativity has paid off. We've seen a lot of good things too. I think that a hybrid model is definitely a great idea, for students, for workers. I think that it's just, that flexibility kind of allows people to be more comfortable. And, also just at my site, I think the fact that we've been able to deliver so much food, I think that's something that should definitely continue. Just those different ways that we've gotten creative have paid off. I think it's definitely something that we should continue in, past COVID, or at least when everything opens up again. Um, yeah, I think that's a great question too, because it's important to notice, like, it's been a rough year, but we've seen a lot of good too.
Um, which kind of, yeah, Spencer, thank you for asking that question. Now, that was like a macro look. What about a micro look? What are some of the things, or either a success that you've had, or a thing that you are just like, this is moving forward, how I'm going to do things? And it could be a skill. Maybe you kind of didn't really know Excel, and then now you've mastered Excel, or Zoom, you're a Zoom master. Like, what is one thing you've really done well and look forward to continuing?
I would say that I have been forced to learn, better organization. And that's something I'm so glad that I got on top of, because working from home, you have to be focused, you have to be, disciplined. And so I've been a student, I've gone through that, and it was difficult, but I enjoyed, having virtual school, because it kind of did teach me that um, self-control that I needed. So I think that those kinds of skills, just being organized and having more, learning to be focused, has helped me a lot. And that's something I definitely plan on continuing.
Yeah.
From an organization standpoint, then one of the biggest accomplishments and things that we've done well have been the virtual events. And um, following up on the conversation we just had a minute ago, like I think that is a component that in the future, even when things are in person again, then like there will be some kind of virtual impact. Like we've seen just too tangibly how many more people we can reach, that like it would be dumb to just ignore that moving forward. And then personally, then I graduated undergrad in 2018. So 3 years later, then this is one of the first real opportunities I've had to like be quote unquote in the real world. And in an organization of like 20 people, then I don't know that there's a specific thing that I would say that I've mastered or anything specific that stands out in the moment. But being in a department of 3 in an organization of 20, like just helping out wherever is needed, and just being in a meeting and someone say, like, having not talked about this before, like, oh yeah, Spencer's gonna handle that. Like, well, okay, that's that's what I'm doing now, and just being trusted with it and having my input valued is just been an overall very broad accomplishment.
I think for me, it's similar to Spencer. I think in a nonprofit, well, my team is incredibly small. So I have like my hands on a lot of different things. I think in general, in like the nonprofit world, like even if you're in marketing, you're still communicating with the different departments like all the time. So I think the experience that I'm having with that as I look for what's next for myself, being able to say, you know, I worked in development, I worked in fundraising, marketing, social media, communications, like being able to say all of that and to genuinely have experience in all those different departments, I think is really helping me professionally. And specifically, one skill maybe that I've picked up is working with data. I'm doing a lot of like evaluations, surveys, just in terms of how we develop moving forward. So I think that is a major one for me.
Hannah, I cannot tell you, before I got to Up2Us, I shouldn't say this out loud, but I thought data was a devil. I really like. I thought it was
Important.
It was not for me. And then the second part, collecting it from others like that, and now I am a data stickler. Like, we gotta have data to ensure we're moving in the right direction. Like, it's so important. Like, how do you not see the value of it?
Yeah.
So yeah, so true.
Luis, if I could add real quick before we move forward, like again, broadly to everyone, all 3 of us, and then like I think people our age, especially everybody who's lived through the last year and like been in school or starting a career, especially, like being adaptable is a skill that whether or not we wanted to, I think all of us should be able to speak to in an interview, and like should just be able to brag about a little bit that in so many different ways everyone has been forced to. So I think, I assume Hannah and Rahael, like you've also probably done that very well if you've gotten to this point.
So you have a magic wand, right? Now that you've mastered data, now you have a magic wand. What is the one thing you hope students will walk away after this virtual year? Maybe 2 things, maybe 3 things, but what is, like, hopefully they walk away with something.
I think that like a sense of community, like if they were like one of our students before this COVID year, like just we showed them that we weren't going anywhere, and we were a constant in their life when other things might not have been. So I think just the sense of having that support through basically the hardest of times we'll probably see in a very long time, knowing that, and knowing that moving forward, they still have their tutor that they work with, their mentor, that we're not going anywhere. Because I think the best relationships are built through the tough times. So I think after this past year, I think that's what our students will walk away with.
I definitely agree with that. I think that's a great answer. Community is so important, especially in this time. We've seen that. So I'd say that I hope our students just know that they're cared for, and, you know, have people that want the best for them, even, you know, whether they have that at home or not. It's just knowing that people love you and support you is so important to your success. So that's something I would say as well.
I don't want to regurgitate their answer, so I'll agree. Absolutely, community, and then on top of that, gratitude, and for a lot of different things. But when other people, I think, have already started potentially going back in person, but I know the first time I can go back and play a pickup soccer game or something like that, like, is gonna feel different than a year or two ago when I could just play once every couple days. So just taking the time to inside and out of sports, appreciate the things that can take for granted.
And now again, we're here at a year. What do you anticipate your work to look like moving forward? You know, kids are starting to come back. I think, I don't know, we're all in different states, but in California, they're just going to roll that out. Has there been talks about what are you guys going to look like moving forward and continue to work from home? What is any thoughts, concerns that anybody has?
I can speak to the Women's Sports Foundation. Yeah, we've been remote since I started in June. I think they were right around mid-March that they started, and we won't be going back until the summer at the earliest. I don't know their plans beyond that, but I know in my mind, then I would assume that a lot of organizations have it may like consider part-time / full-time like remote opportunities, at least internships. It just really expands the applicant pool, rather than being limited to a certain city or something. So and just like we discussed earlier, like I really do think a lot of, especially probably nonprofits, are gonna try to find a way to have their in-person, especially like fundraising events, but also you can just reach so many more people if you do something virtual too. So I don't think I will ever see what we did or what would have been in place 2 years ago. I think it'll be a hybrid.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of success virtually. We've been using a platform called EduGuide to communicate and interact with our students, and it's a social emotional learning platform. So we've seen them really open up, more than they ever have through this platform. So I'm thinking, although we are also transitioning to go back into schools, I'm hoping that we do keep things like that where, you know, virtual has been a good medium for us too. So, virtual events, where we reach more people, like Spencer said, connecting with our kids virtually if that's easier for them. Um, we are really focusing on expansion so that we can support even more communities. So I think my work will definitely probably continue to be majority online just because that's where we reach the most people. So yeah, I would say we are focused on growth in every facet. So however we can do that.
Yeah, I think for us, like for the rest of like the academic year, I think slowly possibly getting volunteers if they're comfortable into schools to hold study hall hours afterwards, because that's what we like used to do in terms of our study hall. But I think in summer we have plans to hopefully have like a camp / like clinic for about a month, where it would be obviously like smaller numbers than usual, COVID safe, stuff like that. But that is in person sports. I think we also, in terms of development, longer term, we want to find like a new location where we can expand in person and have in-person offices for tutoring, while also like right next door, there might be a basketball court and a turf field and weights, and kids can get both in one place. So those are kind of long-term in-person plans, but I think slowly sending our volunteers back to an in-person setting is the first step.
Love that. All of that. I'm so excited to follow you guys on LinkedIn and Instagram and everywhere because I really want to continue to see you guys' work. So, last question. It should be two questions, but we're gonna bundle it into one question. One word that defines the last year as a Vista. Just one word. And then the other part of that question is, what would be your piece of advice for other Vistas, or what advice would you have told yourself when you first started the Vista? I know it's a lot of questions, but it really just comes to define what has your Vista experience been like.
I think for the word, I'll I'll fall on the sword, and hopefully Hannah and Rahel can come up with more creative answers. But the first word that came to mind was like pivoting. And then I guess to the second question, building off the first, this isn't where I would have pictured myself. So it was the 2-month long summer position, and then just academic credit in the fall, and then now this, and hoping it just kind of continues to snowball. I, I was looking out into a blank void and of jobs, and this has been perfect. I'm like the billionth person to probably ever say this, but like it just wasn't the opportunity I expected, but I wouldn't trade it. So if something like this, and if you're looking into AmeriCorps and services, what you're thinking, then just being open to the opportunities that come your way in this field. It seems like it's all good people, so bound to find something good.
Thank you, Spencer.
I think my word is like 2 words, but we're gonna count it as one. It's like eye-opening. I think in different, like couple different senses. Like for me personally, I've learned a lot about a community that I've always lived like 15 minutes away from, but as like a kid growing up, I wasn't involved so much in it, and I kind of lived in my own bubble. And when I grew up, I wanted to pop that bubble so badly and wanted to get involved in the community. So just in my 20s, like learning about a community and the struggles that they may face and stuff. So that's eye-opening in that sense, but also just eye-opening in my career. It's kind of helped me pinpoint the direction I want to go next. I thought maybe I wanted to just pigeonhole myself to nonprofits in general or sports based, but I'm thinking I want to expand a bit more into professional sports and their philanthropies and stuff. So it's helped me make contacts, but also kind of narrow my search more professionally. And I think as in advice, or I guess in advice for somebody who's looking to be a VISTA, like 100% do it, especially if you want to be more engaged in your community. I think that's the biggest thing. And you'll learn about your community a lot, but also yourself. And I think especially, obviously, we all know we get like a living allowance and stuff, and that should not be your deciding factor for wanting to serve. I think it's just like a good step in the right direction in your career.
Yeah, I would say that it's been fulfilling in a lot of different ways. I'd say that it's really fulfilling to me to be serving my community and giving back. And Philly is it's a city that is riddled with a lot of bad things, but it's so beautiful at the same time. I really have grown to love it here, and I'm just so happy that I can be a part of making it even better, and bringing you know bringing up the kids here, because it's really important to me to be able to do that. And it's also been fulfilling in my career. The whole reason I got here was because I was just looking for a marketing job. I just wanted more experience, and I did not expect to get kind of such a big role so soon. But it's been awesome to have people trust and support me, and like everyone, like the students, my site, and everyone there kind of takes on that mentoring role to each other. So it's been really great just meeting people that want the best for you, and it's helped me a lot kind of stay forward and focus on my path and career.
Thank you guys so much. It has been an incredible hour. I think now I would like to do one thing. You guys are all honorary JEDI ninjas. JEDI stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Like I heard it was silly, and now I'm like, yes. So thank you guys so much. It has been an honor to have a conversation with you guys. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.